Hello everyone, I'm going to walk you through exercise 5 retouching, and I'm going to download this file just like if I was in the class with you, work on it, and then I'll export it. That way you'll see exactly what I'm doing and you'll know exactly what to do. And hopefully you won't have too many problems with this, but this is a tricky exercise. It's not a typical workflow for Lightroom. This is more of a troubleshooting problem where you're given an edited image and you have to match it with an edited version of it. So it is a little tricky, but it will teach you some of the tools of Lightroom, which will be very, very helpful for you. Uh, so just looking right off the bat, the unedited image is a low resolution file, and it looks like I'm going to resample that image to a higher resolution file when it's edited. So right off the bat, I already know I'm going to have to make some changes to that when I export it. Now that's not something I typically would recommend. Usually you want to take your high resolution files and make them low resolution so you can put them on like a website or the internet or email to a friend. But you don't typically take a low resolution file and make it a higher resolution file. What that's going to do is pixelate the image, and you will see a little bit of that when we do export it. But for the sake of the assignment, I think it'll teach you how to resize your images when you export them. And this has probably been done just to save some space on Blackboard, is why the file is so small to start with, but I'm not quite sure. So first thing I want to do is just download these two images so we can do that. So I'm open up in the Blackboard here, and I'm going to download these just to my download folder on my computer. And then what I'm going to do on my desktop is just create a folder to put these in. So I'll just call it exercise 5 and open up this download folder, move them in there, and then I'm going to go ahead and just create a folder for the class too. So this is PHOT 113, and I'll put this folder inside of that one. Okay, so next thing I want to do is open up Lightroom. So when I open up Lightroom, it's going to open up whatever the last catalog I used. And what I typically do is I create a catalog for every year. You don't want your catalogs to be too large. You can see so far this year I've almost have 7,300 images in it. So when you get the more files you get, the more images it's going to have, the bigger this catalog is going to be. So it's going to take up a lot more memory space. But I typically make one for every year. And then in each year I make a different folder for every month, so I can kind of keep track of my pictures. And then if I'm in a class or something like at SCAD, I'll make one just for that class. Or if I'm shooting a wedding or something, I'll make one just for that wedding. So what I want to do is just create a new catalog. That way I can just keep track of these two images. So I'm going to go to File, New Catalog. And I'm going to place this catalog in that Photo 113 folder. So I'll just call it Exercise 5. Okay, I need to call it something else since I already have that. So I'll just call it Exercise 5 Lightroom. Okay, it wants to back up my current catalog. I'm going to skip it this time. Now, there's a couple things we want to be really careful about. If I go into open this folder up, this is that catalog that I have open right now that I created. And these are my images I'm going to import in a second. One thing I don't want to do is just move these images. Once I'm in Lightroom and have them imported, I don't want to move these around on my computer because it's going to lose track of them. What Lightroom is going to do is create preview images of your files, and it's non-constructive. That means it will not it doesn't actually do anything to your files so you export it. When it exports it, it makes a duplicate copy of that file. So your original files are never actually harmed or anything. They're always going to be in the original state. But what I can't do is move those files around. Lightroom has to know where they're at from when you import them. So be really careful of that. So I'm going to open up Lightroom, and what I want to do is just click on Import. Now from import, I have a few options. I can either let me find my folder here So I'm going to go to users, my name, desktop. And these are the two files I want to import. I have four options up here. I can either copy these as a DNG file. That's something I would do if I was importing from my camera, which were, like I said, this isn't a typical workflow for a Lightroom. I don't want to do that. I don't want to copy these files. Also, I could actually copy them from the location they're at and make copies of them to a new location, which would be over here, which I keep my pictures all in my picture folder on my hard drive. And like I said, I have them for each month. Or I can move them. I could actually virtually move those images from my desktop to another folder. Or I could just add them. So what I'm going to do is just add it. That way I'm just having one set of these images and they're staying in their original location. So they're both selected. I'm going to click on import. And there's our two files. So one thing you're going to notice is you have these different modules. And right now we're just going to work on the develop module. When you make your index, your contact print, you're going to actually go to the print module. But right now we're going to work on this develop module. So what I want to do is just click on it, and what you're looking at is this file fitted onto your screen. So I can look at it at 1:1. That's 100%. This is our edited version. Now when I go to my unedited version, this is 100%. It's a low resolution file. I'm going to actually have to change this navigation over here, and I changed it to 3:1 just so I can look at this picture. So typically when you double click on your images, it's going to go from 100% to a smaller version of it. But I have to change that to 3:1 just so I can zoom in on it. Now let me go back to the library module just for a second, and I'm going to select both of these images. So I'm holding down the shift key and I'm going to hit N on the keyboard, and this is a like a comparison survey tool, so I can look at two images and compare them side by side. And what I want to do is I want to make a list of all the different things we need to do to this file. So this is our original image. This is what we're supposed to come up with on our final image. So let's look at all the differences we see here. And I just made a list of them. I just look at them and kind of study them. I can tell and I would probably do the same. I'd probably make a list of these. That way you'll be able to kind of check them off as you go. I can tell this one has been cropped from. You can see where I can see the outside of the chalkboard and the bottom of the chair, or the top of the chair. I'm sorry. It's also been cropped on this side, but not on the top. So we need to crop it right through here, right down through here, and up through there. So it needs to be cropped. Now I'd also look at universal adjustments versus local adjustments. Now universal adjustments are changes to the entire image, where a local adjustment is going to be changes to only parts of the image. So I see both of those in this image. For one thing, I'll notice that her nose is a little bit brighter, not as bright as it is here. And I will look at our histogram too and kind of notice that. Her lips look a little bit different color. Her eyes are not quite as a little bit darker. Looks like there's more black added to the image altogether. You can look in the shadow area; it looks darker. You can also notice her skin looks a little bit softer in this picture, but maybe not her arms and her shirt. So that's something that's done to her face. You can notice the moles have been taken off of her face. It's been retouched out. And you can see, trying to see, that looks like the majority. Oh, and also the color is different. Her skin tone is a different color. This is a lot warmer. This is kind of a magenta cast, and the chalkboard's a different color. That might be more of a local adjustment too. So let's start working on these. I'm going to go back to the develop module, and and we're going to work on these tools up here and this exposure, the basic adjustments. We're not going to worry so much about all these other possible tools we can use, but how Lightroom works is you kind of work from the top to the bottom. So all of these are some of our most important tools, and then we kind of work our way down. So the first one I'm going to click on is the crop tool, and you'll notice changing this to 3:1 is going to be very helpful to you. So you want to have this set so when it opens these files up, that you're going to be able to look at these closer than at 1:1. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the crop tool again, and I want to make sure this is not locked. It has these presets in here. I can keep it either at the same aspect ratio, or I can change it to 4:5, 8:10. So your camera is going to import at a 2:3 ratio. That means this side here is a third smaller than these two sides. Okay. So what I want to do with this file though is actually be able to make changes of that, because the retouch file is not exactly the same ratio as the original version. So the new version, the crop version is not. So let's bring up the bottom, the right side, and the left side here. Okay, so let's do a comparison. Looks like I could crop a little bit more off the left side. So what's great about Lightroom is I can click on these tools again and be able to make more changes to it. So let's go back to our version here. Maybe a little bit more on this side. Okay, so that looks about the same crop wise. Then the next thing I would probably do is go ahead and fix the color temperature. So I'm going to click on this white balance tool, and it's going to be defaulted to auto dismiss and have a loop. I don't like this loop. If I look over here to the preview, the navigator, I can see what the changes are going to look like. So I'm going to turn this loop off, and I'm going to turn off the auto dismiss. If I hit auto dismiss, it's going to let me use it one time and it's going to turn itself back off. So I'm going to turn that off. And what I'm looking for is a neutral area in a picture. So it's probably going to be probably somewhere right in here is fairly neutral. And if I look at my I'm going to hit done when I'm finished with this. Since I turned off the auto dismiss, I'll hit done, and I'll look at this picture. Okay, it looks like her the colors are fairly close. I can go in here with the temperature and tint and just kind of tweak it just a little bit. So I might make it just a little bit warmer, but not much. And then the next thing I would probably want to do is adjust the exposure some. So if I look at my histogram, it does change a little bit. So you'll notice on this is the our image here, how this goes from black to white, how the white peaks over here. So there's some blown out highlights in this image, and you'll notice on the later image it doesn't have the blown out highlights, but it has some, the blacks are a lot darker. So let's fix that. So for one thing, if I just want to adjust just the brightest areas of the picture to the highlights, I can use the highlight slider. Now a trick is you use the option key, and that works with the exposure key, the black key, and the highlights. So I can hold down the option key and click on exposure, and it's going to tell me where those blown out highlights are. So I can go to the highlights, click that down and hold down the option key, and then slide it to the left, and I can get rid of that. So I'm going to slide it just so it disappears. I can check the blacks also. The blacks are okay, but looking at the newer version of it, it looks like they're a little bit darker, so I'm just going to darken this up just a little bit. Okay, I'm just going to do a little comparison back and forth. I still think I can darken it up just a little bit more in the shadows. So let's just move this shadow just a little bit over here. Now let's look at these histograms. there are some differences, but let's go ahead and make some more changes. Whenever I make changes to my images, it's going to change the histogram too. So right now I'm happy with where it's at, but as we change the image some more, we're going to go back and look at a histogram and try to match it a little bit closer. It's going to be kind of tricky to do that, but we'll give it a shot. Okay, let's go ahead and retouch the image. Let's take out these moles. So I'm going to click on the zoom tool here, which again, setting it to 3:1. It's going to let me zoom in. I'll just click it with the mouse, and I'm going to use the healing brush. So you have healing or cloning. You can adjust the size of your brush with the slider, or you can use your bracket keys on your keyboard. I tend to use the bracket keys. And you can also adjust the feathering. I would have the feathering somewhere in the middle. You don't want to have a real hard edge or extremely soft edge. So I'll usually keep mine around 33%. And I usually keep the opacity pretty high. Unless I want to be able to still see some of these moles, I might have it turned down. Some people like having their moles on their face. They don't mind that. But again, we're trying to match up an image here, so it's going to be a little bit more complicated. So we're going to go ahead and remove those. So I'm going to click on the first mole, and what Lightroom is going to do is look for an area to match it with to take it away. That one looks okay, so I'm going to go click on another one, another one, another one. Let's see here. Now this one's on an edge, so if I want to change it, I can just move this around. If I want to change the size of it, I can still click on it and make it smaller if I want to, or larger. Okay, let's see. There's one on her arm. I'm not sure if that one needs to be taken off or not. We'll go ahead and clean her up a little bit. And I'll take out these other ones. And then we can click on done. Now the great thing about Lightroom is if we want to make more changes, I can click on this again, the spot removal tool, and I can go back and change it. If I don't like it, I can hit the delete key, and then I can redo it again. Or I can just move these around however I want to try to make a match. Okay, so let's click on done again. Let's see if that kind of matches up our other image. Okay, there's one right here I need to take off, and let's see the other one on the arm. Yeah, I need to clean up the arm a little bit. Same thing here. Okay, let's see how that looks. Alright, that looks pretty good. Okay, the next thing I want to do is some of these local adjustments, and that is using the adjustment brush. It's a great little tool, and what it allows me to do is adjust any of these things. I can adjust the exposure, the contrast, the highlight, shadows, clarity, saturation, sharpness, noise. All this stuff can be controlled with a brush now, so I can just adjust one area. So this is a great way to burn and dodge an image. I can make parts of it lighter or darker. But some of the things I want to do is soften up her face a little bit. I want to maybe darken her lips a little, or change the color of her lips, lighten up her eyes. I'm going to change the color of this background. It's still not exactly the same. It's a little bit different color temperature. And then, again with the face, we want to soften this face. Now this is another thing. Skin softening, there's some much better ways of doing that than this, and this picture looks a little bit over softened, but that's okay. Again, we're trying to match this image. So first thing I'll do is I'll just change the color back here a little bit. So I can use my bracket keys to make this larger or smaller, and I'm just going to paint this area. Now what I typically do is I'll just adjust one of my areas, like maybe my exposure, and it creates, it's almost like a mask so I can see what I'm doing. And if I make a mistake like that, I can click on erase and go back erase that area. You'll see there's a little minus sign over my brush now. And then if I want to make more changes to it, click back on that brush. I can always just click it again to go back and work on it some more. So I'm going to double click that slider to go back to 0. And what I'm going to do is just change the color of this. I'm going to make it a little bit more blue and maybe make it just a little bit darker. So I'm going to click on done, and that looks pretty close so far. Okay, let's soften her skin a little bit. So I'm going to click on this adjustment brush again, and I'm going to click on the effect is going to be clarity, and it doesn't hurt to have it, kind of extreme just so you can see what you're doing. So I'm going to zoom in on this picture. So I still need to zoom in. I'm going to click on this 3:1 over here, and I can hold down the space bar to move around the screen, and I'm just going to soften her skin up a little bit. Normally you don't want to soften the eyes. The eyes is on a portrait needs to be the sharpest part of the image. Your eyes will get drawn to the sharpest part of the image first, and you don't want the eyes out of focus. I'm going to not soften her lips either. Okay, so I'm going to go back and cut this back a little bit now so it's not so soft. Okay, let's look at our other image here. Okay. Now notice it's still the color temperature is off a little bit on her. This is again what's nice about Lightroom. I can go back in and click on this image again and try to find something maybe a little bit more neutral, or I can just use my slider. So I'm still trying to think. Looks like she's not quite as warm, and I'm just gonna go back and change just a little bit. That looks better. Okay, so what other changes do I still see on this picture? Her hair looks a little bit darker. In this picture, this is our final image than this one. So if I wanted to darken her hair, I could a little bit. I could probably still darken the whole image just a little bit more. And I'm adjusting the blacks. And all I'm doing is just looking back and forth. Okay, let's lighten up her eyes a little bit. It looks like they're just a little bit lighter right in here than this one. So let's go back to our adjustment brush. And what I want to use this time is a shadow adjustment. And I'm just going to go right over the eyes just a little bit here. Okay. So if I go over to shadows, you see what it looks like if I adjust it too much. So maybe right in there, it looks pretty good. And let's see what else looks different. It looks like her lips are just a little bit different color. So let's go back to adjustment brush again. Let's just zoom in closer. So I'm going to click on the 3:1. I'm just going to paint her lips. And then I'm going to reset the shadows now, and let's go into, I'll go into temperature, and I'm going to adjust the temperature on her lips just a little bit, and maybe just adjust the saturation a little bit. Let's bump it up a little. Okay, let's see what it looks like now. Okay, that looks pretty close. What has changed still? Is there anything different? Okay, this little area right here. Looks like your skin might be a little bit softer still. So if I want to go back and change that, I click on my adjustment brush. I click on whatever adjustment that was, so I can see with my when I click down and hover the mouse over that, it shows me where I painted. So I can always go back and paint a little bit more once I have it selected. And then I can go in and adjust it some more if I want to. Okay, I'm going to click on done again. I'm going to go back to my library view one more time. Now let's see if there's anything else I missed. So let's look at these two pictures and see what looks a little bit different with them still. Okay, it looks like if this is my version, the background might be a little too blue now. So let's go back and change that. Again, part of this exercise is just kind of learn how to use these tools. Okay, if it's too blue, let's cut it back a little bit. A little bit too blue still. I'll change it a little bit more. Okay. So I need to make sure that I'm back in here. I've actually just changed the whole picture. I'm going to hit Command Z to undo that. Go back to here. Go back to here again. And let's adjust this temperature a little bit more. Okay, that looks pretty close. Let's see if we missed anything. I think that's about as close as I'm gonna get it. Now this is gonna be, it's gonna be probably impossible to make these look exactly the same. For one problem is this is still a high resolution file. This is low resolution. We're gonna make this picture higher resolution, but it's still not going to be as clear as this image. I really think that they took a high resolution file and made it low resolution, and then you're making it high resolution again, but I'm not quite sure what happened here. But this is my take on the image. Yours is going to be a little bit different. I think it'll be good to play around with some of the tools and see what happens. So the last step is going to be to just select your image that you want to download, and that's going to be this one. You can see it shows you it's been cropped and the exposure's been adjusted. I'm going to click on export, and I'm going to put these in the same folder as the original, and I'm going to rename it. So you want to rename it first initial, last name, and then EX5. Okay. And I just use a custom text. If it has other settings on there, you can go in and edit this, and then if it has something else, you can remove it. You can just click delete, and you can add and change that. So we actually just wanted to say first initial last name underscore EX5, and then I'm gonna make this file match this version a little bit more. And I looked at it in Photoshop. And I'm going to change the longest edge to 8 inches. And I'm going to change this resolution to 300. So this is what they did. And then I'm going to leave everything else the same. So I'm going to click on export. You'll notice that it's going to make the changes up here, and it tells you it's already finished. Okay, so I'm going to hide Lightroom for a second. I'm going to find that file. And right here it is, and I'm going to just look at it. So there's our finished file. This is what you're going to upload back to Blackboard to turn in. I hope this was helpful for you. Like I said, this is it's kind of a challenge, but I think it'd be good just to learn how to use some of the tools in Lightroom. I think it'll be good for you. And if you have any more questions, just please let me know, and I can make some corrections or help you. But good luck with this, and I think you have a good chance of getting it right. But again, just trying to use those different adjustment brushes will be helpful in making those universal versus the local changes.